start OBS. There we go. Awesome. Sick. Welcome in, everyone. Welcome to Dino Class. It has been a hot minute since I've done Dino Class, and I feel really, really bad about that because I had to take some time away. But welcome in. Hello, hello. Ah, man. Um, there was I forget what I wanted to start out talking about today. There was that really cool video, and this is more of a topic to just get this ball rolling. There was a video done by Film Core a few days ago, where they go over like what an actual fight between two tyrannosaurs would look like. If you guys haven't seen that, I 100% recommend you check that out. It was really well done. There were some pieces of information that were a bit iffy, but other than that, I think it did it did really really well for what it was trying to convey. But hello, talk about dancing Carnotaurus. You know what is really interesting about that scene? So everyone has probably seen the prehistoric planet dancing Carnotaurus. Well, I'm here to tell you, and I've probably said this in the past, and in fact, I guarantee you I have said this in the past, that is likely actually what happened, and I'll go ahead and show you why. So this right here is Carnotaurus. Carnotaurus is an abelosaurid dinosaur from South America in the late Cretaceous. A notable feature of abelisaurs, a rather unfortunate feature for the abelisaurs, is their... I can't find the controls for the arms, but is their arms. Their arms are so small that they do not actually have elbows. It is a singular bone that connects to the wrist and then to its four fingers. The thing about it is that the joint that connects this arm to the shoulders is very flexible. In fact, they can move it in almost a complete circle, which means they were likely using these arms for a different purpose than they were for originally. Meaning they had adapted these vestigial limbs for a different purpose. That purpose likely being for mate selection. So it is very likely that dancing Carnotaurus is a lot more likely than you think it is. But yeah. Yeah. Dino Class, hi, welcome in. Feel like a trilobite sometimes? That's real. I too feel like a prehistoric trilobite. I wish they were still around. I guess like technically their niche was taken up by like horseshoe crabs. And by the way, if you have never like checked out like the extinct horseshoe crab rabbit hole, dude, go take a look at some of those extinct horseshoe crabs. Some insane. There's one that's like super wide. Like the front part of its shell is like several feet across. It's so weird. So your tail's out the window? I know, don't worry about it. They haven't modified the window to fit my tail, unfortunately, so yikes. But yeah. Where have you been, Lakota? I've been away. I stepped away because I had to take priority over something in my personal life. But as of right now, I'm in the process of figuring stuff out. So I am back in action. My plan for the time being is to either upload or stream every single day of the week. Aside from Sundays, because Sunday is when I film my podcast with Dino Guy and Paleo Pizza. Speaking of which, they always get on to me when they show up in my chat and I don't see them because there's like 100 people in here. So I know tomorrow, or yeah, it's Saturday. I know tomorrow when I get in call with them, one of them's going to mention it. Do you have a Utyrannus model? I do, actually. I did see someone asking about Dilophosaurus, I believe. And I will talk about Dilophosaurus while I find my Utyrannus avatar. Dilophosaurus is a lot bigger than I think people realize it is. I do actually have a model of it as well. Where is my Utyrannus model? It's hiding from me. But Dilophosaurus is almost as big as a polar bear, which is wild because the polar bear is actually the largest terrestrial carnivore currently alive. Aha! There he is. I found my Yeti. But yeah, the polar bear is the largest terrestrial carnivore alive right now, and Dilophosaurus is about the same size and possibly around the same weight. It is around, I think upper estimates put it at like 900 pounds. which is crazy. I think more conservative estimates will put it closer to 600 pounds. But yeah, they were one of the most dominant predators in the early Jurassic. Now, as for Eutyrannus, Eutyrannus was a very dominant a tyrannosauroid from the early Cretaceous of what is now China. These guys are known from 3 specimens that were discovered in 2012, I believe. There was a large specimen, a medium-sized one, and then a younger one. And the formation in which they come from was hit with irregular volcanic activity. So Eutyrannus was preserved really, really well. And we know that Eutyrannus, even though it's like basically the size of like a large allosaur, was fully feathered. Because the volcanic ash preserved the impressions of the plumage on the animal, which is really cool. Eutyrannus, I also think, is like the 2nd or 3rd largest animal in its formation. It preserves a lot of smaller details, which is very cool. But yeah. What's your opinion on the Indominus Rex? Cool animal. Fictional dinosaurs are pretty neat. I don't think that animal's anatomy would allow, like, I've said this in the past, all right? Indominus Rex is cool. If you like it, awesome, cool. I'm glad you enjoy it. That animal's anatomy would have been awful if you placed it in like an actual environment. Firstly, the teeth. The teeth are the first thing that I always talk about because it has the teeth. I don't know if you knew this. In lore, the teeth are from Deinosuchus. The reason crocodiles and stuff like Deinosuchus are able to have those exposed interlocking teeth is because they're constantly in water and they're keeping their teeth hydrated. You do not have that for a terrestrial animal, which is why nowadays we believe a lot of terrestrial theropod, or a lot of theropods, would have had lips covering their teeth. See how, like, when I stop talking and the Eutyrannus closes its mouth, you can't see the teeth. Like, okay, you might accidentally, like, that's its lips. Those aren't teeth, but yeah, you don't see them. So that's like my first issue. There are a few others, but I'd be rambling all day. I'm watching this while riding my Meg. Is it safe? Probably not. Keep just put me on in the background. Just watch where you're going, please. But yeah, what would happen if we found out T-Rex? If we put the T-Rex always near the ocean, would it get used to the water? Well, that's actually really interesting because T-Rex was near the ocean. During the late Cretaceous, North America was split into 2 subcontinents, effectively. There was Appalachia to the east and Laramidia to the west. Laramidia is where the Tyrant King took a foothold as its home environment. The most popular place for T-Rex, right? And it's important to note that T-Rex had a very large range of where it would be. They could be as far north as Canada, like up in like northern Alberta, and as far south as central Mexico. But the very famous place where T-Rex would have been was Hell Creek, which is located in Montana, and I believe it actually spans over 4 different states, both of the Dakotas, Montana, and Wyoming. That place is or was a coastal wetlands. It was a marshy wetlands because what would happen is that the tide in Laramidia, because the central ocean called the Western Interior Seaway split North America in half. The ocean or the sea would rise in high tide and it would come back down. But there was a lot of water that would get stuck on land and it made that marshy environment. So T-Rex was living in a place very, very similar to, like, say, modern day Florida, Louisiana, and a lot of places near the Gulf. So it was already pretty used to the water. Now, we also know that animals like T-Rex was capable of swimming due to what we call swim traces. These are where the animal's toes would actually dig into the sediment of the river or seaway as they come ashore. And it's pretty cool. Now, they're not from T-Rex specifically, but it's from an animal that is a lot similar to T-Rex. I think it's another tyrannosauroid of some kind. But yeah. Who do you think, or who do you like more, Stan or Sue, or Scotty the T-Rex? Or do you like Eutyrannus? My favorite dinosaur is Nanooksaurus hoglundi, personally. It's a lot like Eutyrannus, but Eutyrannus is a tyrannosauroid, whereas Nanooksaurus is a tyrannosaurid, so it's a part of that main family. As for Stan, Sue, or Scotty, I'm partial to Sue. Sue was one of the first of them. She one of the first really, really, really well preserved T-Rexes, and she still is. She is giant. Now, I'm saying she, but technically Sue could have been male or female. I don't believe we have found something called medullary bone or medullary tissue on Sue. So we don't actually know if Sue was male or female, but Sue is named after the paleontologist who discovered her. But it is really funny that a lot of T-Rex specimens have like the S names. So you've got Stan, Sue, and Scotty. And then you have the fragmentary specimens like Edie, Cope, and Goliath. I'd like to mention to everyone who I have seen using Goliath as like a new standard for T-Rex, that's not how that works. Animals are built based off of holotypes. Goliath is not the holotype. The holotype specimen for T-Rex is located at the American Natural History Museum, and that's actually the same T-Rex that they used to base Jurassic Park's Rexy on. You can go check it out. I believe it's AMNH 5027 is its official designation, sometimes just referred to as Roberta, after the animatronic T-Rex. But yeah, can dinosaurs dance? Yes! We actually have evidence of this. So in dinosaurs, the dancing is called lekking, I believe. And you see this in modern birds. Well, they'll like do like a little performative dance. And it's usually to attract mates. We have evidence of this. We have fossil trackways, or trace fossils as they're called, that show these erratic movements of the animals that were in one singular place, meaning this was likely what they were doing in that at the time of those being made. Now, obviously, that is a little bit of speculation. There's plenty of other reasons that maybe they were doing that. Maybe they were kicking up dirt for like a nest or something or the other. But it is one of the ideas, and it's pretty cool. But yeah, with Therizinosaurus is aggressive. We don't know. Therizinosaurus is known from very little material, and a large part of its skeleton is inferred from other therizinosaurids like Northornicus. Therizinosaurus, funnily enough, we don't have its skull. So when I get asked about like the Jurassic World Dominion Therizinosaurus, the only thing that I will ever critique about it mostly is its posture's weird and the claws are not as curved as they should be. The skull of Therizinosaurus we have never found. Most of the time when you see artwork depicting Therizinosaurus, the skull is actually built off of another Therizinosaur, the North American Northornicus, and also a Crixonatosaurus. But I have a hard time saying that thing's name every single time. I'm not even sure if I said its name right there. It's just one of those dinosaurs. Don't even get me started on Bista. There's a tyrannosaur called Bista heliversor or something. I just call it Bista because it's easier. Don't be ashamed if you can't pronounce a dinosaur's name. All right, I'm dyslexic, and this was an awful career path for me to take. I'm kidding. I love this. But yeah, modern Spinosaurus is cool. I agree. Was Parasaurolophus the best? The best is subjective. So if you think it's the best, then it was the best. Sure, yeah. It was also like crazy huge. Like I don't think people realize how big hadrosaurs are. Like that is a elephant-sized reptile. And people always depict them as like cannon fodder for like T-Rex and whatnot. And that's always depressing to see because like there are some dinosaurs that were much bigger than their predators, especially sauropods. Don't even get me started on sauropods. I am going to change to, we're going to do Megaraptor. I haven't been in the Megaraptor avatar in quite a minute, so it might take a minute to load. So while it does, tell us some facts about Tyrannotitan. Oh, there we go. Tyrannotitan was a South American Carcharodontosaur that isn't really known from a lot of great material. Tyrannotitan, honestly, is one of my favorites. I do actually have the PNSO Mateo, the Tyrannotitan figure, and it sits over there with my Eamon the Spinosaurus and Cameron the T-Rex. Yes, those figures come with names, by the way. I did not give them those. But it is a part of the lineage. Its closest cousins are things like Giga and Mapusaurus. Those three are kind of like the keynote Carcharodontosaurids of they're technically late Cretaceous, but like they're right on the line. Like they're right on the line between the early and the late Cretaceous because there is no mid Cretaceous. But those guys are like your keynote Carcharodontosaurids from South America. Carcharodontosaurids were likely specialized in hunting sauropods. Unfortunately, off the top of my head, I do not remember the sauropod or many of the animals that lived alongside Tyrannotitan, unfortunately. But it would have been an apex predator, and it was huge. It was a giant Carcharodontosaurid. And there was a point that I had from someone in my Discord. That'd be Doc J, one of my friends. By the way, we have a community Discord, link in bio. And it was that you don't really realize how big these animals are until you're standing next to them. Go to a museum. Like, you always hear, it's like, oh, T-Rex is like 8 to 12 feet tall at the hip, and like you don't get how big that is until you're standing next to them. Like, it's one thing to see a size scale, right? It is a whole different thing to stand next to it. It is crazy. But yeah. What's the best way to get a career in paleontology? Well, one, have a passion for it. Be very, very passionate about it, because you're going to need that, because there is not a lot of money in it. The other way is to go to school. A lot of schools do not give out specialized degrees for paleontology, so there are two ways you can typically go for it. You can either get a degree in geology or zoology. You can also do biology. There are a few schools that have specialized degrees for paleontology. Unfortunately, I do not remember which ones do. I believe I have a video in my repost somewhere. You might have to dig for it. Of someone explaining how to do that best. But you can also do it independently if there is public land. For example, there are rivers and streams where I live where you can find things from like the Ice Age. There was like a mastodon tusk found near where I live like a year ago, and that was on public land, I believe. And you can also find like shark teeth and stuff like that. I found a megalodon tooth in a stream like years ago, and it's literally right here on my desk. Like, I'm touching it right now. It's super cool. But yeah, mostly school. That's what I'll say. Mostly find a school that maybe provides a specialized degree in paleontology. But yeah. Between the difference between Tyrannosauridae and Tyrannosaur. Oh, okay. So okay. Tyrannosauridae and Tyrannosauridae are two different things, yes. So when you hear me say Tyrannosauroids, I mean Tyrannosauridae. That is the much, much larger group that encompasses several other groups. For example, that is the superfamily that also contains another family called the Proceratosaurids. Weird, right? They're not connected to the Ceratosaurs. Don't worry, it's nomenclature and taxonomy are confusing, I know. So that also contains things like Eutyrannus, whereas Tyrannosauridae is the main family. That is your main Tyrannosaurs. That's like your T-Rex, Albertosaurus, Gorgosaurus, Nanooksaurus, and stuff like that. There are other groups. There's the Eutyrannosaurs, which I think are outside of the main group, which are things like, Dryptosaurus and whatnot. But yeah, basically, it kind of like all Tyrannosauridae family members are a member of the Tyrannosauroididae, but not all Tyrannosauroididae family or super family members are a part of the Tyrannosauridae. It gets a little confusing, and it gets even more confusing because like literally everything attached to Tyrannosaurus is called Tyrannosaur something. Like, don't even get me started on the Tyrannosaur NA, which is like a whole like different section. It gets complicated. Is this going to be on the test? No, I don't believe in tests. Or, well, no, sorry, I don't believe in homework. This will be on the test. I do have to test you legally. But yeah. What's the best dinosaur fun fact? Well, there's a lot of really cool fun facts about dinosaurs. I think there's a lot of interesting dinosaurs that are just justifiably cool by themselves. There's Yeti. You may have seen a video by me the other day where I said the dinosaur with the shortest name is Yi. It is literally Y-I. It's Yi. That is the shortest dinosaur name. That is its genus name. Its species name is Chi. So it's Yi-Chi. It is I think, Jurassic bird-like dinosaur from China that instead of having feathered wings has wing membranes. There's another one I think it's called like Epidopteryx or something along those lines. That one's also another hard one for me to pronounce. Um, but one of my favorite fun facts in general is the joint, or like the ball joint that connects the head of Triceratops to its neck is almost a perfect sphere. It is almost a perfect sphere, and that is crazy to me, which shows that they had crazy flexible heads. So that's one of my favorite fun facts to tell people. Um, Tell us about Spinosaurus. Yes, Spinosaurus is a super cool theropod from the beginning part of the late Cretaceous. I do have to find my Spinosaurus avatar. Where is it? There he is. These guys are full of controversy because the original specimen of Spinosaurus that was first discovered in Egypt was actually destroyed during the bombing of was it Munich? I think it was Munich. During the bombing it was a German city. The original specimen was destroyed by an Allied bombing raid in World War II. Is effectively what I'm trying to say. And most of what we know about Spinosaurus had kind of been inference from other Spinosaurids. So you look at other Spinosaurids like Suchomimus and Baryonyx and stuff like that. Those guys look very, very different from Spinosaurus itself. They're actually on the opposite end of the Spinosauridae. They are part of a group called the Baryonychine, or the Baryonychinae, and then Spinosaurus is part of the Spinosaurinae. And for the longest time, we had reconstructed Spinosaurus based off of Baryonyx and Suchomimus and Spinosaurus like it. It wasn't until 2014 that we realized, with the help of a new specimen, that Spinosaurus was a lot different looking than we initially thought it was. For one, it had way shorter legs than we thought it did. And then later on in 2020, another paper came out from the same group of paleontologists that had found the legs, saying that they had found a tail, and the tail was super long. A lot of people latched onto the idea that it was like a tadpole tail and it was used for swimming. However, recent research suggests that it was more like a basilisk tail and could have been used for mate selection and was probably more for show than it was for utility. Especially if you take a look at like a tadpole tail and the tail of a basilisk lizard, they look very different because they are for different purposes. That's effectively what was said. But yeah. Any facts about Zhucheng tyrannus? Zhucheng tyrannus, last I heard, might have gotten a bit bigger, which is really cool, which means it's probably bigger than Tarbosaurus, making it one of the largest theropods to exist in Asia. Zhucheng was really cool too. It was hunting things like Sinoceratops, which Sinoceratops is also really strange. And also Shantungosaurus, which is the largest non-sauropod dinosaur ever. It was a hadrosaur, and it was closely related to things like Edmontosaurus. I also saw someone saying something about Suchomimus. Suchomimus, I actually have an avatar for Suchomimus, and if you've never seen Suchomimus, one thing I want to say before I put the avatar on is that Suchomimus is also a Spinosaurid, like Spinosaurus here. And you're going to see why a lot of old Spinosaurus interpretations looked the way they did, because they were building interpretations off of Sucho and Baryonyx. This look familiar? My point. They built a lot of early reconstructions of Spinosaurus itself off of Suchomimus, but Suchomimus was a Central African Spinosaurid. Upon its discovery, it was initially thought to have possibly been another species of Baryonyx. However, there are a few things that separate the two, mostly measurements of the skull in terms of length and width and stuff like that. As well as size. Size isn't always something to differentiate things from other things. For example, there are two species of Edmontosaurus, Regalis and Anectens, and Anectens is shockingly larger. But Suchomimus was found to be its own unique genus of Spinosaurid, and I will also say So, because we measure the height of dinosaurs based off of hip placement, because the size and shape of dinosaurs vary greatly, so the uniform decision is to measure dinosaurs based on how tall their hip is. That does make Suchomimus taller than Spinosaurus because you're not counting Spinosaurus's sail. Sucho was taller than Spino in some cases, and that's crazy to me. But yeah, Quetzalcoatlus. Oh man, Quetzal is not. I did see the comment about Utah Raptor. I'll get to that. Quetzalcoatlus is not a dinosaur. It is a avian reptile. And funnily enough, birds are also avian reptiles, but that's a whole different story. But Quetzalcoatlus is not a dinosaur. However, it probably did possess feathers like a lot of dinosaurs and all modern dinosaurs do. Probably not in the same way, though, as of course they had winged membranes. Now, there are two species of Quetzalcoatlus. There is Northropi and Lawsoni, both of them found in Texas. And they are huge. Quetzal, I believe, is the tallest animal to ever fly. Though Hatzegopteryx, I believe, is thought to have been a little bit heavier, maybe with a slightly larger wingspan. Hatzegopteryx is also just another horrifying animal, very dominant in its ecosystem because it had no large theropods to compete with. But Quetzal was about the size of a giraffe when standing on the ground and would probably prey on animals that were our size or smaller. So we would be a good meal for a Quetzal. However, we probably wouldn't be swallowed whole as, well, their necks are very thin, so they probably couldn't fit us down there. So that's a horrifying fact for you. But yeah, anyway, I did see someone say something about Utah Raptor, so I do want to talk about Utah Raptor. Utah Raptor is the largest dromaeosaurid that we have ever found. A lot of people will say that the raptors in Jurassic Park are Utah Raptors. They are not. The velociraptors in Jurassic Park were originally designed off of Deinonychus, and while it is not an impossible size for Deinonychus to get that big, it is definitely not a common size that you would have seen. The raptor I could point to and say that is effectively the same size as the Jurassic Park raptors would be a Kilobator. Now, Utah Raptor lived in the early Cretaceous of what is now North America, obviously. Because, like, who would have guessed it? The thing called Utah Raptor lived in Utah. I'm looking at you, Walking with Dinosaurs. The original one, not the 2025 one. I'm talking about you, original Walking with Dinosaurs. What do you mean Utah Raptors in Europe? I found that is so absurd. I didn't know about that till I actually really talked with some other dinosaur content creators that they put a Utah Raptor in Europe. Absolutely crazy. Anyway, these guys were very, very large, larger than the Jurassic Park raptors, and would have also been comparable to like a polar bear. Actually, I think they're bigger than grizzlies. Utahs. But yeah, these guys. It's debated whether or not they hunted in packs. We know that a lot of smaller dromaeosaurs probably weren't hunting in packs. They'd probably live kind of like foxes. But there is somewhat of a correlation between size and pack hunting behavior. But it's likely that a lot of those packs, a lot like modern day wolves, would have been comprised of families and like not just random individuals that like joined up, unless they were like the mates of a family member. But yeah, they were taking down things like Gastonia and younger sauropods. Pretty cool animals, I'll say. But yeah. What dinosaur lived in France? There is a sauropod from France called Ampeliosaurus. I don't remember if it has a lot of good material, but I know that it did exist in France. There is also the chance you would have seen things like Torvosaurus gurnii. I know Dacenturus was there. You would have seen, and this is across like all different time periods. So like those two might have coexisted, but then you have like Iguanodon in the early Cretaceous. There's also Megalosaurus as well. You find Megalosaurus in Britain, but knowing what we know about like population distribution and probably the fact that the British Isles were connected to mainland Europe at the time probably means they were in France as well. So yeah, pretty cool stuff. How big do you think the largest raptor could possibly get? Ooh, man, that is a hard one. the largest of the dromaeosaurids in terms of that would probably be, I would say, maybe not too much over like 1,000 pounds. I think any further up that scale, you start to get a little absurd. Now, of course, there are some animals that are called raptor that aren't actually raptors. Funnily enough, taxonomically speaking, raptors are alive today. They're just birds of prey, things like hawks and owls and falcons and stuff like those. Back then, it's just dromaeosaurid. But there are a lot of dinosaurs that are called blank raptor. There's oviraptor, gigantoraptor, sinraptor. Those guys are not raptors. Oviraptors are oviraptorans. I forget the exact family name for Gigantoraptor. I know it's like an oviraptoroid thing. Sinraptor is, I actually forget. I'm not gonna take a guess on it because I completely forget. I apologize, Sinraptor. But yeah. Are the Jurassic Park dinosaurs accurate? Not even close. I mean, for the 90s, they were good. For 1993, they were good. Today's standard, absolutely not. What did they do to that Giga? I want to talk about that for a second. And I want to say this. The Jurassic World Dominion Giga. Let me talk about the prologue real quick. Let's ignore the fact that it looks nothing like an actual Giga. Why? Why was a Giga in North America? Not only was there a Giga in North America, it's a time traveler, apparently, because by the time the T-Rex shows up in North America, guess what? Giga had been dead for 20 plus million years. So not only did that Giga cross the sea that separated North and South America at the time, but he somehow time traveled. What? I don't know. It's something, I don't know. It could shoot fire. Yeah, and like suddenly, well, it's because they put a flaming like locust in its mouth. I'd also like to mention that there has never been a locust species that big. They call them prehistoric locusts. They're not. They're not prehistoric locusts. Those are completely made up. There, as far as I am aware, there is no locust that has ever existed that is that big. Yeah. Can you review Deinosuchus? There's actually 2 species of Deinosuchus. Okay, so if you're unfamiliar, Deinosuchus, or the terrible croc, is, funnily enough, not a croc anymore. There was a study done not too long ago. We originally thought that Deinosuchus was an alligatoroid, making it a part of the mainline crocodilian group. A lot of people will say that crocodilians have been around for millions and millions of years, and that's true for crocodiliforms. Crocodilians, specifically, like modern crocs, like things like, crocodiles, alligators, gharials, caimans, those guys show up in the late Cretaceous. Now, we thought Deinosuchus was an alligatoroid. It apparently is not, after a new study. So it got moved. I don't know where it got moved. Apologies for my ignorance, but it is not seen as a true crocodilian. But there are 2 species. Forgive me for not knowing the species names, but there is the Laramidian species and the Appalachian species. Because again, North America was split by the Western Interior Seaway, which went all the way from where the Gulf is now, all the way up into Canada and into the Arctic Ocean at its peak. So there was a species of Deinosuchus on the Appalachian side, and there was a species of them on the Laramidian side. I believe the Laramidian species was bigger. But they are, like 40 feet long? For crocodiliforms, they were, I think, the second largest. I think they get pushed out by Purosaurus from the Cenozoic of South America, which was a caiman, by the way, which I didn't know until like 6 months ago. So that's pretty cool. But yeah. Talk about Archelon. Archelon is a super cool extinct sea turtle. If you have seen Prehistoric Planet, then you have seen Archelon. You know that big turtle that the T-Rex, which I believe the community named Hank, you know that turtle, it like swims across the channel and flips over to eat? That was Archelon. In the show, they actually depict them as being similar in shape, are very, very similar looking to leatherback sea turtles. Now, turtle evolution is weird. And I'm going to leave it at that because it is complicated and people are still arguing over it. But a lot of people think that they were somewhere closer to archosaurs. I think, I don't know. I don't want to touch this debate with a 10-foot pole, please. I don't remember if it's seen as like a true sea turtle that we have today or if it's outside of that group. Someone told me that it is seen as a true sea turtle. So it looking like a leatherback would make sense. But these guys are huge. They would have been eating on a similar diet to leatherbacks, I imagine. Kelp, jellyfish, and stuff like that. They were, I forget exactly how big, but I want to say from like head to tail, they were like, God, how big were they? Like 9-10 feet? I could be very wrong about that. Again, dinosaurs are my thing, not turtles. I'm sorry if I'm wrong about that. But yeah, super cool animals though. Are chickens related to dinosaurs? Chickens aren't just related to dinosaurs, they are dinosaurs. All modern birds are dinosaurs. So let me explain something real quick. There are two types of taxonomy. There is Linnaean taxonomy, which is the older and the original form of taxonomy, and there is phylogenetic taxonomy, which is a newer form and the most commonly used today, especially in the field of paleontology. Phylogenetic states, Linnaean, I should probably say, Linnaean categorizes animals based off of physical traits, whether they be internal or external. Phylogenetics categorizes based off of ancestry. One of the rules of that, of categorizing based off of ancestry, is that you cannot leave a clade. So you will forever belong to a group that you evolve from. That is why humans, we are still hominids. That is why we're still apes. That's why we're still primates, why we're still mammals, and so on, and so on, and so on. And like synapsids and stuff. So birds evolved originally in the Middle Jurassic. The earliest bird relatives show up in the mid-Jurassic and proliferate all the way through the rest of the Mesozoic and managed to survive the KT extinction about 66 million years ago and survive into the modern day. Birds are not related to dinosaurs. They are dinosaurs. They are the last living remnants of them. So yeah, it's pretty cool. I missed the one that was pinned. I literally took off the headset to look at chat and it was gone. I feel so bad. Saurophaganax maximus. Oh boy, that one was recategorized as Allosaurus anax earlier this year or late last year. It was believed that Saurophaganax was a chimera of sauropod material and allosaurid material. So the unique bones being the sauropod material kept the name Saurophaganax, whereas the allosaur material got recategorized or reclassified as Allosaurus anax. Still really, really big allosaur. Like the animal still exists. It's just going by a different name. What books do you recommend on dinosaur anatomy? Oh, man. Anatomy. Do I have books on dinosaur anatomy? I don't think I could point out any books specifically on dinosaur anatomy, but there are plenty of really good books that I would recommend in general. Obviously, one that I will always recommend first off is The Rise and Fall of the Dinosaurs. There's Dinosaurs the Grand Tour, which is a great encyclopedia. There's one book that I think might go into the anatomy of dinosaurs, but I haven't gotten my hands on it yet, which is Dinosaurs, What They Did and How We Know. I hear it's a great book. I really want to get it. I don't know any books specifically on anatomy, but I do know there are plenty of places on the internet. I recommend... there are a lot of really good places online for open source research papers. Like you can just get the raw research paper online. Open source research papers are the best because they have like no restrictions on them. So I'd recommend looking up like open source research paper on the specific anatomy you want to take a look at. So that would be my recommendation. Were spinos bipedal or quadrupedal? The current idea is that Spinosaurus specifically was bipedal. Now, could they sustain their weight on their knuckles if they were leaning forward like that? Probably. Problem is, we don't have the arms of Spinosaurus. We have pieces from like every major part of Spinosaurus aside from its arms, but much like other Spinosaurids, it probably had very large muscular arms. They could, I doubt they would walk on all fours, but they could like rest on their knuckles if they're like putting their snout in the water like that, which they would likely do to pressure sensors and stuff like that. Yeah. Chicken. Oh, here, hold on. Actually, I'm gonna change my. Let's go with a megalosaur. Why not? Yeah. Patagotitan. Patagotitan is a really cool titanosaur from, well, Patagonia. Patagotitan ranks amongst the largest of the dinosaurs. It is somewhere between 60 to 70 tons. And these guys were giant. Now, the thing about sauropods that I think a lot of people mistake, and this is for sauropods in general, Patagotitan would have been late Cretaceous, by the way, South America, obviously. A lot of people have a tendency to think of sauropods as gentle giants. In fact, there is a video on YouTube called The Gentle Giant or just Gentle Giant. It's a part of an analog horror series called Prehistoric Emergence. And it shows why approaching a sauropod and assuming that it is friendly is a bad idea. Here's why that's a really bad idea. Because A, sauropods spent a long, long time in their early life being defenseless and easy meals, right? Because the main weapon of sauropods is their size. And for a majority of their early life, they do not have that. So you spend your entire early life being easy prey for much larger carnivores. And once you get to an adult size, you are supposedly, according to some people, becoming a pacifist and you're impassive. That is not the case. A sauropod that saw a carnivore nearby would probably charge it and try to end its existence. They would not be friendly. Like, look at modern herbivores. Look at like moose and bison and water buffalo and like even zebras. They are mean. They will jump at any opportunity to get rid of predators. But yeah, talk about Luangosaur. I did see that one. I cannot pronounce that thing's name, but I can tell you, I will call it Lio, because the first part of his name is Liao, unless my dyslexia, made me like completely jumble that up. But it's a really cool ankylosaurid from what I remember. And I believe it's from, I forget exactly where and when it lived, but the thing that makes this little guy, and he was little, it was a little ankylosaur, is that what makes him unique is that he appears to have been eating fish, or at least some of the specimens that we have found the remains of fish in their stomach. And that is super interesting because you, like, think of Ankylosaurus. You don't think, yeah, that's going to dive into a river and catch a fish. Apparently, this guy was. Now, obviously, again, this guy was not as big as Ankylosaurus. They were very small for Ankylosaurids. Now, of course, there is a debate on whether or not this thing was eating fish, or maybe this was a younger individual of the species that fell into a river and maybe died on top of a fish. Because there is a debate on whether or not these specimens that we have for this specific ankylosaurid are juveniles or adults. That is an active debate going on. I haven't kept up with it, unfortunately, so I might give that a look after stream. But yeah. Tarbosaurus. What dino are you right now? I am Weho Venator. I see someone asking about Iguanodon and Tarbo. Let's do both. Okay, Iguanodon. We'll start off with that one. Iguanodon was one of the first dinosaurs to ever be found, but it was the second dinosaur to ever be named. Funnily enough, the specimen that they had for Iguanodon turned out to not be Iguanodon. But thankfully, I believe they had a neotype specimen already for the genus. So awesome. So we got to keep the name. Anyway, Iguanodon has gone through many different interpretations throughout the years. There's the old interpretation from the 1820s, I believe, where it was depicted with like a horn on its nose. Funnily enough, the horn on its nose was actually its thumb. But yeah, it's gone through a lot of different interpretations. If you want to see a really well animated video going over the interpretations of the first two dinosaurs ever discovered, that being Megalosaurus and Iguanodon, I recommend the episode Terrible Lizards that is a part of the Dinosauria series on YouTube. Check that out. Does an amazing job conveying what we have like thought of these animals, and it's great. I love it. As for Tarbosaurus was originally described as Tyrannosaurus batar. It was found by I think it was like a was it like a Polish expeditionary team in the Gobi Desert or something like that? And it was oh yeah, I forgot. Nicolas Cage bought a Tarbosaurus skull and then had to return it to the Mongolian government, and then he went bankrupt. If you've never heard that story, it's absolutely wild, but sounds exactly like something Nicolas Cage would do. But Tarbosaurus is a close relative of T-Rex. It lived in the late Cretaceous of what is now China and Mongolia in a formation called the Nemegt Formation. This is the same formation that houses dinosaurs like I think Tarchia, Therizinosaurus, Dinocuris, Nemegtosaurus, and also Velociraptor. However, Velociraptor and Tarbosaurus likely did not interact with each other because there's a possibility the Velociraptor was already extinct by the time Tarbosaurus shows up. But yeah, super cool. Amargasaurus. Amargasaurus is a sick sauropod. It is relatively small for a sauropod, but it is still about the size of like a large rhino. It is really. I follow someone here on TikTok whose name is Your Local Federal Agent, aka Cat. She's been talking about rhino conservation quite a lot recently. Go check her out. It's a good message. But Amargasaurus was about that size, and they have these like strange neural spines that come off the back of their neck. In fact, here, hold on. I have an Amargasaurus avatar, and let me tell you, these things are funky looking. Let me find this thing. Yeah, here he is. I really hope this avatar isn't broken, because this is like an older one. Give it a second. It's been a minute. But anyway, they have these weird neural spines that for the longest time... yeah, here we go. That for the longest time, we thought it looked something like this. We thought the spines poked out of the back of their neck, as well as into the main body. But nowadays, I think there was a research study done on like the consistency of attachments with them, so it's more likely that Amarga looks something like this. They have the kind of like a hump kind of figure to them. I wonder. I do wonder sometimes if there was like skin covering the gap here. But as of now, I don't believe we have an answer for that. Oh. Okay, that actually spooked me. I forgot this thing had sounds. I'm actually going to switch out of this. I'll switch to my Stego. But yeah, Marga is awesome. Talk about Suko. We did talk about Suko. It is a Central African Spinosaurid. It was originally thought to have been possibly a Baryonyx, but it is its own unique thing. It is one of the most well-represented Spinosaurids in the fossil record, too. So, super cool. Yeah. What's the difference between dinos and flying dinos? If you mean flying dinos as in like pterosaurs, then pterosaurs are their own unique group of animals that exist outside the Dinosauria family tree. If you mean flying dinosaurs as in avids, like birds, then the difference is that birds are dinosaurs, but not all dinosaurs are birds. Also, having feathers doesn't make you a bird. But yeah. Let's talk about Stegosaurus yet. I have not, but Stegosaurus is also really, really cool. I believe it is a ankylosaurid that has like this weird tail weapon. It has like these osteoderms, which are calcified bones that are kind of free floating in the skin, kind of similar to the plates of Stegosaurus. Stegosaurus's plates are what we would call osteoderms. Crocodiles have them. Those bumps on the back of crocodiles, they have them. But the weapon that Stegouros had on its tail resembled I forget if it's a sword or a club, but it was like a type of Aztec war club. I'm not an anthropologist or an archaeologist, so if I'm using the wrong term there, someone please correct me. But it had that kind of weaponry on its tail, which, by the way, I would like to mention there is some confusion about weaponry when it comes to dinosaurs. A lot of people assume that the weapons that some dinosaurs have, like the horns of Triceratops, the thagomizers on stegosaurs, the club tails on some ankylosaurs, that these were used primarily against predators. They were not. What we see in nature is that a lot of these animals that have weapons will typically use them against their own kind. Think of like deer fighting each other with antlers. And that's likely what was happening with like ceratopsids and stuff like that. In fact, there is a species of ankylosaurid in, I forget exactly where, called Zool, that actually has evidence of interspecific combat with another member of its species, where it had like osteoderms on its side that were like crushed via like a blunt force impact, and it had healed over. So yeah, pretty cool. But yeah. Changosaurus. Changosaurus, funnily enough, is a tyrannosaur from Asia. It is a true tyrannosaur, so it is a part of the Tyrannosauridae. However, it is part of a smaller group called the Alioramidid. It is the largest Alioraminid. Alioraminid? I think, is that the... I don't know. But it is the largest of that group. The other two being, I think, two different species of Alioramus. And they are pretty cool. So Alioramids actually had proportions that were very similar to younger, larger tyrannosaurs. So like if you look at an Alioramus and like a juvenile T-Rex, they would look a little similar. They would have more thin, longer snouts, typically longer arms as well, longer legs, and they would likely be faster and more agile. So yeah, but Changosaurus is one of those ones that you don't really think about too much. But like, if dinosaurs existed in the modern day, things like Changosaurus would be like your main go-to problem for humans. I'll leave it at that. I am actually going to switch into... Where's my good T-Rex? I have a T-Rex model that I just absolutely adore. I need to find it. Where is it? There it is. I want to go ahead and put this on real quick. We've been going for almost an hour now. Awesome. Spicomelus. Okay, if you guys haven't seen this, Spicomelus is a new ankylosaurid that was, I think it was originally described in 2021, but there is new material that has been described. And it's really metal. Now, the unique thing about Spicomelus is, one, its appearance. It has a collar of spikes. I'm not exaggerating. Look up Spicomelus. It has a collar of spikes around its neck. We do not, unfortunately, have any fossil material from the tail, so we don't know if it had like a club tail or if it had spikes on its tail. A lot of people will depict it with spikes on the tail, as to just kind of go with the rest of its body. The other thing that is really unique about Spicomelus is when it existed. I believe it has been dated to the Middle Jurassic, which is far before other large ankylosaurs showed up in the fossil record. You will mostly see ankylosaurids, at least the larger ankylosaurids, near the tail end of the Jurassic, the early Cretaceous, and of course you have Ankylosaurus right at the tail end of the late Cretaceous in what is now Montana, which also actually lived alongside a nodosaur called Denversaurus as well, which is pretty neat. So yeah, just otherwise, just really metal-looking animal, and also really early to the party, I'll say. But yeah. Oh, okay, TikTok thinks I'm AFK. Okay, there we go. I got it. But yeah, talk about Brachiosaurus. Brachiosaurus is really cool. Do you know the name means arm lizard? Or arm reptile, depending on how you want to translate saurus. It is honestly one of the larger sauropods to ever exist, at least in terms of like head height. They are really tall. They lived in the Jurassic of what is now North America, and um, there's a whole thing about like the end of the Jurassic and something called the sauropod hiatus. Um, that's a whole different thing though. But brachiosaurs were honestly, uh, if I was an allosaur or a torvosaur in the Jurassic of North America, I'm not getting close to that thing because its front arms are just giant pillars, and that thing weighed several tens of tons. I don't know the exact weight, unfortunately, off the top of my head. But getting trapped underneath that thing's feet is a death sentence. You would be flattened, like, kind of easily. We actually, do you know that we have evidence of a sauropod walking on a turtle and flattening it? It's pretty neat. Yeah, Diplodocus as well. Yeah. So this goes into another thing about sauropods in North America. There were a lot of sauropods in North America around the same time. You had things like Diplodocus, Bronto, Apato, Barosaurus, a bunch of species of Camarasaurus, Brachiosaurus, all of them living around the same time. Very, very densely populated. Now, Diplodocus itself is really, really cool. The longest sauropod ever is actually a diplodocid. So, within the same group of sauropods. And it's called Supersaurus. Now, there was an idea for a good while that Diplodocus could crack its tail like a whip. That is not the case. The idea stemmed from how thin its tail was once you got to the end of it. If Diplodocus was capable of cracking its tail like a whip, it would break its tail. But anyway, these guys are super cool. We used to think they were kind of like grazing sauropods, like they'd hold their heads down further, closer to the ground. That is not the case. We know that they held their heads up higher. They would have been eating segments of the trees, like Bronto and Apato. By the way, meant to cover this a bit ago, but Brontosaurus is back. It is a valid genus of sauropod as of 2015. So it's been a thing for about a year, or for about a decade. Archaeopteryx! Archaeopteryx is super cool. I really, really enjoy Archaeopteryx because it's kind of like that gap between birds and dinosaurs. There's plenty of debate to be had on whether or not Archaeopteryx was capable of powered flight. Some people think it is, some people think it isn't. As of right now, I don't believe that debate has been settled. There's a similar debate going on for Microraptor as well. But Archaeopteryx was a Jurassic bird-like dinosaur. The one specimen of Archaeopteryx that is really, really important, there are a few specimens of it, that is really, really important is specifically the German specimen. The German specimen of Archaeopteryx actually preserved feather impressions. This is what kind of revolutionized our understanding that dinosaurs and birds were were connected to each other. Again, it's like the missing link between dinosaurs and birds, and it really, really showed that. And nowadays, we know that a lot of dinosaurs had feathers. A lot of theropods probably had sparse feather coverage, kind of like this T-Rex here. You see all that little feather bristle right there? That's about as much as T-Rex probably had. We know that dromaeosaurids or raptors would have had a lot of feathers. Obviously, birds have them now. But yeah, Archaeopteryx is undeniably one of the most important fossils that has ever been discovered. So, yeah, super cool. Opinion on Zygoniosaurus. Give me 1 second, actually. I don't believe I know that one. Give me 1 second. Zygoniosaurus. Zygoniosaurus. This is... Whoa! That's cool. A genus of long-necked herbivorous sauropod dinosaur from the Middle Jurassic period found in the Shaxomyo formation of Zygon. Oh, that is really cool. That is a really big sauropod, too. Yeah, it seems to be a really cool sauropod from the Middle to Late Jurassic period. Wow, so it was around for a hot minute now. Man, that's really cool. I love seeing the stuff that comes out of China that's dated to the Jurassic, because there's a lot of really cool dinosaurs that lived in the Jurassic of Asia. But unfortunately, not a lot of it has been preserved. But a lot of really cool stuff does come out of there every once in a while. But yeah, super cool animal. Dilophosaurus, we did talk about Dilophosaurus very briefly a second ago. I will say this. Dilophosaurus is a lot bigger than you think it is. Did not have frills, did not likely spit venom. I don't even think Dilophosaurus was thought to have been venomous at any point. But Dilophosaurus is dated to the early Jurassic. It was one of the larger theropods of its time. It would have been hunting things. I think it was it God, I forget the name of it, but it lived alongside a sauropodomorph. Someone's probably yelling it to me in chat, but it lived alongside an early sauropod relative. But yeah, really cool animals. Why are mesosaurs not considered dinosaurs? I remember there is something called a mesosaur. Mesosaur. Ah, yes. So mesosaur, unless you have misspelt something, mesosaurs are like a lizard-like group that lived in the Permian. So they're probably more closely related to lizards themselves. But if you mean mosasaurs, then mosasaurs are also lizards. Mosasaurs are a part of the Schemata branch of sauropsids, or reptiles as it's commonly referred to. Mosasaurs are, funnily enough, their closest living relative is things like the monitor lizard and Komodo dragons. They are seen as Vernidae lizards, I believe, which is that group that they belong to. Funnily enough, that does mean that mosasaurs and Megalania are a part of the same family. Or maybe not same family, but part of the same grouping. But yeah, they're really cool. Also, funnily enough, if you know what Megalania is, the giant Komodo dragon from Australia, it's not called Megalania anymore, by the way. It's actually got reclassified to the same genus as the modern day Komodo dragon, so I believe it is called now Varanus priscus. So yeah, it's not even called Megalania. What is my favorite dinosaur? My favorite dinosaur is Nanuqsaurus hoglundii. It is a tyrannosaur from Alaska from the late Cretaceous, roughly 75 to 70 million years ago, native to the Prince Creek Formation, which is all the way in northern Alaska. It is one of the most isolated fossil formations in the world, and I absolutely love Nanuqsaurus. Unfortunately, doesn't get a lot of love. The most love that Nanuqsaurus has gotten in a really, really long time was Prehistoric Planet. I have been told that Nanuqsaurus will appear in the future documentary Surviving Earth. So be on the lookout for that documentary when it comes out. It's also in the Dinosauria series, specifically in the episode Our Frozen Past. Again, recommend you check out Dinosauria on YouTube by Dead Sound. Really cool stuff. You talk about Macrothorax and Megaraptorids, please. Yes, I can. So Megaraptors are honestly what I would refer to as nightmare fuel dinosaurs. Megaraptorids are really strange because we're not exactly sure where they fit in when it comes to the theropod lineage. They are either tyrannosauroids of some kind, or basal coelurosaurs, or carcharodontosauroids. Something along there. Their placement has never really been concrete. Now, if they belong to those groups, why are they called Megaraptors? Well, when Megaraptor was first found, and this is Megaraptor, by the way. When Megaraptor was first found, they originally found its hands. And this hand, notably, has one singular giant claw that is bigger than the other two. And when they found it, they thought it was a raptor foot, like a dromaeosaurid foot. So they named it Megaraptor because they thought it was a giant dromaeosaurid. It is not. They eventually realized that it was its hand and not its foot. And unfortunately, with how taxonomy and categorization works, you cannot rename stuff based off of confusion and stuff like that. That's why the Proceratosaurs are not closely related to the Ceratosaurs. And then, obviously, the Megaraptors aren't raptors. These guys kind of come in a variety of sizes. You have things like Australovenator. You have Megaraptor itself, you have Arostaion, and of course you have the largest of the family, that being Mipe Macrothorax. Mipe is a 4-letter name, but has the sickest description ever. So the name MIPE, like, okay, macrothorax, its specific name, that just means big chest. Macrothorax, big chest. MIPE, I believe, is an indigenous name in the culture of the people who live in the area that it was found, that roughly means the shadow of death who kills with the cold wind. And for as large as it was, it is an earned name. These guys lived in the late Cretaceous of what is currently South America, as I mentioned. Would have been about this big. And are just otherwise alarming. I will say that out of all of the Megaraptors, I don't think there is a single Megaraptor that is too small or too big to see humans as a viable prey source. Which is why I am terrified of Megaraptors. Also, their arms are way too long. Oh, unique fact about Megaraptors. A lot of dinosaurs can't pronate their wrist, which means they can't point their wrist downwards. Megaraptors, since they were using their arms and hands as weapons, were capable of moving their arms in an almost pronated position, kind of like this. So they could almost pronate their wrist completely, which, would have helped with hunting. So, yeah. Talk about Konkulu. Konkulu is, I believe, the name translates to the Dragon Prince, I think. I could be wrong about that. It's been a while since I've read that paper. But it is a kind of a what we like to call another missing link. It's it links the smaller tyrannosaurs to the much larger ones. It's kind of like a middle ground genus. It is very similar to the Alioramidi in that group, but it does have notable features that seem to indicate that it is not an Alioramid of some kind, and it is that missing link that I was talking about before. It is not actually the first deep-snouted tyrannosaur of that size. I think there is another tyrannosaur that was named a few years ago called Asia Tyrannus. Asia Tyrannus is another small, deep-snouted tyrannosaur. Deep as in, like, they don't have, like, really long snouts like the Allioramids do. But yeah, super cool. What's your favorite hadrosaur? It has to be Edmontosaurus. Edmontosaurus was one of the first hadrosaurs that I ever got to work with, specifically Edmontosaurus annectens. Back in 2018, I got to go on a fossil expedition in Hell Creek. I got to work on a Triceratops that we were excavating out of the side of a hill, and I got to work on a Edmontosaurus rib cage that we were also excavating at the time. While I was there, they also this was like the same group that I think excavated Dakota, the Edmontosaurus. So they were allowing us to make replicas of the skin impressions found on Dakota, the mummified Edmontosaurus. And that is sitting up on my desk right here. I'm touching it right now, but you can't see my arms. But yeah, Edmontosaurus has got to be my favorite. Did you know that Therizinosaurus's claws were too fragile for fighting? I did know that. You know why? I have one. There is a Therizinosaur claw sitting about 8 feet in front of me. It's over on another one of the tables I have here in this room. But yeah, it is about 2.5 feet long. They're super curved, and they're also very fragile. Take it from me. I've held it. That thing would probably break if it used it against like a Tarbosaurus or something. Pretty cool. Is Prehistoric better or Prehistoric Kingdom better than JWE3? Don't know. Don't have my hands on JWE3 yet. I do enjoy Prehistoric Kingdom though. I'm assuming that's what you meant. But I really enjoy Prehistoric Kingdom because of its paleo accuracy, and they recently added an update that makes it a lot easier to build. So I'm really enjoying that. But yeah, it's all up to taste, man. Dilophosaurus, the best dinosaur. This is another thing. Your favorite dinosaur is the best. I will say this now. If you have a favorite dinosaur, it is the best. Because that's the great thing about dinosaurs. They're like Pokemon, right? Everyone has a favorite. I like Nanooksaurus. That is the best dinosaur in my opinion. If you like Allosaurus, Dilophosaurus, any of them, they're the best. It's completely subjective. Your dinosaur is the best dinosaur. There you go. I will fight I will fight you because I do subjectively believe that Nanooksaurus is the best, but I also acknowledge that every dinosaur is the best because it is subjective. But anyway, a meteorite is coming. Well, that's weird. It was an asteroid. Huh. Well, if it's a meteorite, we should be okay because I believe the Chicxulub impactor, that is its name, it was an asteroid. So we're all right. Opinion on Allosaurus, super cool theropod that I think, honestly, it really got screwed over for its name because it just means different lizard. And you know, you look at it and you're like, yeah, okay, yeah, it is pretty different. Not a lizard, obviously. Dinosaurs aren't lizards, but it is really cool. Fun fact: I think like 70% of the fossil material that comes out of the Morrison is Allosaur material, which is super odd, but also makes sense when you think about like where they would be. Like allosaurs would be in the drier parts, whereas things like Torvosaurus and Ceratosaurus would be in the more wet parts of the ecosystems, and same with the sauropods. They'd be coming and going out of those places all the time. But yeah, super cool. Talk about Magurosaurus. Magurosaurus. Give me 1 second. By the way, while I am looking this up, I do apologize. I may look like a Megaraptor right now. I am only human, and I can only answer so many questions. If you have a question that I have missed or I, you know, if I didn't answer, you're free to go to the most recent video that I have posted or whatever video I've posted. Ask me a question there, and I'll get to you as soon as I can. Or you can join the Discord, where we have an entire channel dedicated to asking me questions, and I'll get to you as soon as I can after that. Magurosaurus. Wow. A dwarf titanosaur sauropod that lived in Europe. Oh, I've heard about this guy because they were going to add him to the Isle, weren't they? Lived in Europe, especially. Oh, it's the island dwarfism sauropod that lived on Hetzeg Island. That's cool. Okay, Magurosaurus is pretty cool in my book. It is an example of something called island dwarfism or insular dwarfism. It's when a large animal gets smaller because it is on an island and the resources get more scarce. For example, insular dwarfism or island dwarfism is the whole reason. Okay, I'm going to ask you guys a question. Are you ready for this? I'm going to ask you guys a question. Are you ready? What is the largest elephant? And I mean elephants as a whole, not just like the African bush elephant and stuff like that. What is the largest elephant that ever existed? I want to see if you guys get it. Okay, someone got it off bat. It is Paleoloxodon. Okay, are you ready? What is the smallest elephant to ever exist? What is also Paleoloxodon? Yes, it is. The smallest elephant to ever exist is Paleoloxodon. The largest elephant to ever exist is also Paleoloxodon. This is because there was a species of Paleoloxodon that got trapped on an island, and they got super, super small to the point that the smallest and the largest elephant ever are the same genus. They're not the same species, mind you. They are different species, but they are part of the same genus, and it's wild. Yeah. Mr. Dino, win his lunch. Well, it's about 20 minutes till 12 for me, so in about 20 minutes, I'd say. But class might end before that, so yeah. How was it like fighting Carno as Mipe? Oh, dude, it's wild. I don't know how those Abelisaurids get around with no arms, man. Arms are great. I have seen Amazing Dino World. There's the one scene of the sauropod that has a Mipe latched onto its head, and it just flings the Mipe into like the background. Like he got flung and sit like so high in the air. He landed, and I was like, "That thing's dead. He's gone." An animal that big flying that high, yeah, he's dead. Oh man. Did the Ichthyonometer sail really look like that, or is it just damaged individual? That is the debate. There is a lot of things that you could say about that. Now, as far as I know, the vertebrae that have been dented when looking at Ichthyovenator. And I'll go ahead and actually pull this up for people who have not actually seen Ichthyovenator before. I'll show you what they're talking about because it is pretty interesting. Here we are. This is Ichthyovenator. It is a type of Spinosaurid from, I believe, Laos. Anyway, so this is what they're talking about. There is a dent in the sail of Ichthyovenator, and there is the possibility that maybe it was a damaged individual. However, as far as I am aware, there are no signs of those vertebrae healing, indicating that it might just look like that. Now, obviously, when you look at Spinosaurus, there's a lot of modern reconstructions will show that there is like a curve down in the sail of Spinosaurus, for example. So it is possible that that is just a trait some Spinosaurus had. Ugh, excuse me. But yeah, what dinosaur do you think was the most efficient hunter? Ooh, that is hard to say. There are plenty of dinosaurs that I would say were probably really, really good at what they do. But we do know that the likelihood of a large animal succeeding in a hunt is actually very small. For example, we have specimens of Triceratops and T-Rex that show that they survived, or Triceratops and Montosaurus and Triceratops that show that they survived an encounter with Tyrannosaurus. There's an Montosaurus missing a vertebrae like close to the base of its tail, and there are healed bite marks on the frills of Triceratops that are attributed to T-Rex. So we know that even the mighty king of the tyrant reptiles did fail hunts occasionally, and they are proof of that. As for what would have been the most efficient, hard to say. I would reckon, I would take a guess that it was maybe some type of dromaeosaurid. Those guys would have been hunting smaller animals, especially like things like Velociraptor. They would have been eating smaller mammals and lizards and preying on opportunistic young of sauropods and other animals that are around their size. So they probably had to struggle a little less for their food, given they were hunting smaller ones. And, well, they were probably really fast, so they were able to catch them. So I would recommend that it was a dromaeosaurid of some kind, if not a modern bird. You know? But yeah. Are dinosaurs we see now, like in movies, mostly fake? I mean, they are CGI, so yeah. But there are some that, if you mean inaccurate, I don't know if you're using fake as like a synonym for inaccurate. Then yeah, they're like the Jurassic franchise isn't great. Primitive War was their T-Rex was not great. Their Utah Raptor looked amazing, by the way. I'd like to say that. I mean, if you want some accurate looking dinosaurs, I recommend Prehistoric Planet. Those guys are really good looking. Obviously, it is a little dated nowadays, but you know, still pretty good looking. What was the dinosaur that had like feathers and bat-like wings? It was a small bird. Oh, that's Yichi. That's Yichi. We mentioned that before, actually. Yichi was a small bird-like dinosaur that had winged membranes, like a bat, instead of feathered wings. Really cool little animal. One of my favorites, honestly. But yeah. Talk about dinosaurs from the UK. There are a good many of those. You obviously have the first dinosaur ever described as pescivorous, that being Baryonyx walkeri. There is Megalosaurus, which was the first dinosaur ever discovered. It was actually discovered in a quarry located in Oxfordshire, England, I believe. And then there is Iguanodon. Now, Baryonyx and Iguanodon did live alongside each other. They lived alongside each other in the early Cretaceous. Megalosaurus would have been around the Jurassic. So Megalosaurus and Iguanodon would have never interacted, but Baryonyx and Iguanodon likely did. In fact, I do believe there is a specimen of Baryonyx that was found with like juvenile Iguanodon bones in its stomach, indicating that even though it was a Spinosaurid, they would have been pretty opportunistic to eat food that was either close or close to the side of a river or just something they came across. So yeah, yeah. Hey Lakota, what do you know about the fauna of Hertzegay? Hold on. I love learning new things about dinosaurs. Oh, I've misspelled that. Fauna Herzige. Oh! Herzige is a newly discovered small plant-eating dinosaur from the mid-Cretaceous period, around 99 million years ago, found in Utah. Ooh, this is an interesting looking little guy. Based on what I'm seeing, it looks kind of like a Dryosaur. I would assume it would be a part of the same lineage. However, this is the first time that I have seen this animal. And wow, it is really small. I recommend you look it up. Fauna Herzoge. Interesting. That's really cool. Oh, apparently this one says it probably burrowed. Animal meaning it likely spent part of its life underground. Wow, that's actually really cool. That's really fascinating. Thank you for teaching me about that. That is a neat little guy. It was found in February, apparently. That's awesome. What's your opinion on my favorite dinosaur, Suchomimus? I think Suchomimus is awesome. A friend of mine, Doc J, he loves Sucho. Sucho is his favorite dinosaur ever, and he's taught me a lot about it. And he has informed me. I don't know if he's in chat or not, and if he is, I've probably missed him, unfortunately. But hey, what's up, Doc? If you're in here, he has enlightened me to the fact that because we measure height, and I've said this before, because we measure height based on hip placement in dinosaurs, Suchomimus is taller than Spinosaurus, which is just wild. But yeah, super cool. Round or square sail for Spino? I think it would have been a bit of both. I think sail shape would be very different depending on the individual. It might be an individual basis thing. So there was a possibility that you had some that were rounded sails, some that were square, some were dented. Like same for ichthy here. Hey, maybe not every ichthyosaur had a dent in their sail like this. Maybe some of them were rounded. Maybe it's an individual basis thing. For example, like on ceratopsians, for example, we know that their horns were probably different shapes depending on individuals. We know this because like that was the core of their horn was slightly different depending on individuals, and the keratin sheath around it probably would have made it look very different as well. So there is a basis for assuming that maybe it was an individual thing, you know? Please talk about Quetzal. We did talk about Quetzal very, very briefly, but I'll give you a very brief rundown. Quetzal is not a dinosaur. It is an Asdarchid pterosaur. And yes, pterosaurs are a different lineage. They are not dinosaurs. Quetzal was among the tallest of them. I think Hatz is heavier and probably had a larger wingspan. But Quetzal was a North American species, and there are two species of it, Lawsoni northropi, and they were about as tall as a giraffe when standing on land. They would have been hunting smaller animals, and by the way, they were... okay, so something I didn't mention when I mentioned this, when I talked about it before. Asdarchid pterosaurs hunted on land. Asdarchids are very unique because compared to other pterosaurs like Pteranodon, for example, they were upright. They walked upright. They weren't hunched over. And this indicates that they were likely hunting on land because their necks and their heads probably weren't built for, like, the original idea for pterosaurs like Quetzal was that they were skim feeders, which means they put the lower part of their beak in the water and they'd fly over it and they would snap their jaw shut as they hit a fish. We know now that that is not possible, and if they had done that, they would have broken their beak. So they were likely hunting on land. They were terrestrial predators capable of flight. The horrifying thing about this, they could gallop. This is a giant stork giraffe. That is effectively what Quetzal is, and they could gallop like a horse. No thanks. I'm good. Koda, what dinosaurs should I make an edit about? Ooh, Carnotaurus, because that animal is metal. I love that thing's horns. They're super cool. Go for Carno. But yeah. Didn't they steal babies though? They likely would have had the juveniles of other species as a primary food source as well. Yeah, they could probably grab the babies of hadrosaurs and ceratopsids and even tyrannosaurs to some extent. So yeah, that is very likely. Even though it's one of the most researched dinosaurs, what are some of your favorite facts about Taco? So, those of you that don't know, there is a dinosaur called Psittacosaurus. There's actually a lot of them. There's like 8 to 12 species of these guys. And they are the most, or at least there is a specimen of it that shows like the coloration of Psittacosaurus. So it is one of the most well documented dinosaurs that we know of, aside from living ones, of course. Um, I would I would like to say that one of my favorite things about Taco is, and the reason they call it Taco is because it's called Psittacosaurus, and like in the middle of the name there's like TACO, so they call it Taco. One of my favorite things about it is the speculation that it led to about larger ceratopsids. The idea that other ceratopsids had quill-like structures on the tail. So those of you that don't know, hold on, I have a Psittacosaurus avatar. I can show this off to you. Where is he? Here he is. Here he is. I will actually make him a little bigger just to kind of show him. Okay, so this is Taco. He's got these quills on his tail right here. And somewhere along the line, a lot of people speculated that Taco, being a ceratopsid, because it is a ceratopsid, this is a cousin of Triceratops you're looking at, likely meant that other ceratopsians likely had quills as well. This is purely speculative, but there are a few ceratopsids that I refuse to believe didn't have quills. One of them is Pachyrhinosaurus paratorum. It probably did not have like full feathering like you see in prehistoric kingdom. However, I would imagine it would have had quills. But yeah, I just love the speculation we got from this animal. But yeah. Will there be lockdown browser on this this upcoming quiz? It is so hilarious to me because that you say that, because my mom is a science teacher and I took her class and she always used lockdown browser. Man, that, like, I get it. I get why. But man, it infuriated me. But yes, you will be using lockdown browser. Talk about Pachyrhinosaurus. Still crazy echo? Is there an echo on me? Are you hearing me twice? No? Okay. Sorry. Okay, I saw a comment and I panicked. Okay, thank God. I did see someone ask about Pachyrhinosaurus. I did see someone ask about Mipe. We have talked about Mipe, so I'll quickly cover it real quick. Largest megaraptor. The name means shadow of death, who kills with the cold wind. Absolutely metal. That thing is my personal nightmare. God, if you put me in front of a megaraptor like Mipe, I'd have a heart attack. Before that thing even swung its claws at me, I'm already gone. I'm already gone, man. Same with Carno. Carno could reach 35 miles an hour. If I see anything the size of Carnotaurus running at me at 35 miles an hour, there's nothing I can really do about that. Like, realistically, what do you do about that? Anyway, sorry, Pachyrhinosaurus. Pachyrhinosaurus is a super cool citrosaurian ceratopsid from the late Cretaceous of what is now North America. Specifically, they were very, very numerous in Canada. There are 3 species of them. There is Lacustae, which is the common one. This is Paratorum. This is the one I was talking about earlier. So this is Lacustae. This is the one that you've likely seen, right? This is Lacustae. It is the most, I believe it is the type species. Then there is Canadaensis. And then there is, that's the female for Canadaensis. And then there's Paratorum. Now, did Pachyrhinosaurus paratorum look like this? Probably not. This is just a really cool interpretation of Paratorum, and I really like it. But Pachyrhino is really cool as far as ceratopsians go. I like to say that it is my favorite ceratopsian, because ceratops means like horn face, and these guys don't have a horn. It's just this hardened, bony boss on their nose. And before someone says that it has horns on the top of its frill, those are not horns. Those are epiccipitals. Technically, the thing like in the middle of their frill could be seen as a horn, but the ones on top of the frill are not. These are called epiccipitals. They are a different thing. But yeah, so really, really cool animal. Whoa, I just noticed the gifts. Thank you guys so much. Anything new on Utyrannus holly? Not that I am aware of. It is still the largest feathered animal to ever be discovered. So yeah, super cool. Talk about Diabloceratops. Diabloceratops is really interesting because it kind of defies what we know about ceratopsids. I hit my keyboard. I really hope I didn't press a button and mess something up. Whoops. Diabloceratops is actually a centrosaurian ceratopsid, much like Pachyrhinosaurus here, right? However, the other group of ceratopsians are the chasmosaurians. Okay, so let's think about this for a bit. This is a centrosaurian. Chasmosaurians are things like Triceratops and Torosaurus, Triceratops, Torosaurus, Chasmosaurus, and Cosmoceratops. God, okay, I needed to do that. So the main thing that a lot of people will point out is that Chasmosaurians have more developed brow horns. Centrosaurians have more developed centralized nose horns. However, that is not always the case. For example, Diabloceratops has giant brow horns, and they also have giant epiccipitals poking out of the top of their frill. So that is not the defining feature that makes something a centrosaurian. And same goes for things like Medusaceratops, Lokiceratops, Albertoceratops, Windyceratops. All of those guys have more like developed brow horns than they do centralized nasal horns, like Styracosaurus and Pachyrhinosaurus, even though it's not technically a horn. So what is what really differentiates them? Well, Chasmosaurians have shorter epiccipitals, which again are like the spikes along the frills, and larger frills. And you kind of see the opposite in Centrosaurians. They have shorter frills, larger epiccipitals. However, there is another thing, and that is noses. Centrosaurians have very rounded and tall snouts, whereas Chasmosaurians kind of come to a point. Now, obviously, it's a very blunt point, but it's more of like, it's a lot more noticeable in the Chasmosaurians. But yeah, Diabloceratops is really cool because it's one of those ceratopsians that really just, like, doesn't look like it fits in with its family, but even still, rad animal. The name translates to the devil's horned face, or the devil horned face. I like to say it's the devil's horned face because that sounds a lot cooler, and it's not technically wrong. But yeah, whoa! Thank you, Jordan, for the galaxy. I really appreciate that. Really sorry if I'm not reading off gifts. I do apologize to you guys. I like to keep this ball rolling, and also this is like the longest Dino class I've had in months. But yeah. Do I play Path of Titans? Yes! If you go check out my TikTok here on TikTok, or hey, if you're watching the VOD on YouTube, because this video will eventually reach YouTube, I have a section of videos called Dino Mini Lessons. You can go check it out. A lot of those videos, I use Path of Titans and Prehistoric Kingdom as a kind of a way to show the dinosaur while I am talking about it. So if you want to go check out those, be my guest. Go for it. It's a lot of fun. I love Path. Ever read The Rise and Fall of Dinosaurs? Yes, I have read the book The Rise and Fall of Dinosaurs because it is the #1 book that I will always suggest to people when they ask for a book recommendation. It is really good. It covers a lot of stuff, and I really think everyone in here should give it a read. It's really, really good. Ceratosaurus is a really cool Jurassic theropod. There are 3 or 4 species of them currently. I forget. Like one of the species is currently thought to have been the same as another species, so that's probably invalid. But other than that, super cool. Hadrosaurs fight. Do you think the Hadrosaurs will fight back at JW3? I hope so. Back to Ceratosaurus, because there is a lot of interesting stuff about that. Ceratosaurus is often referred to as the osteoderm-covered theropod because Ceratosaurus had osteoderms. Osteoderms, as I mentioned before, are calcified, like bony structures located on the body of the animal that is not connected to the skeleton. They are free-floating bones in the animal. and Ceratosaurus had them lining its back. It had a bunch that lined all the way from like its neck to its tail. So it had a whole bunch of bumps along its back. Similar, honestly, to things like Edmontosaurus, which would have had a similar thing going for it, at least appearance-wise. However, for Edmontosaurus, those weren't osteoderms. They were actually just the vertebrae sticking out of the back. Which is why that one specimen where it had like the top part broken off, that was able to be broken off pretty easily by the Tyrannosaur because, well, it's just kind of sticking out right there. But yeah. Talk about Carnotaurus. We did talk about Carnotaurus a little bit beforehand, but I didn't actually cover a whole lot of it. But I will tell you this. Carnotaurus is known from one really well-preserved specimen. Actually, hold on. Let me use my other Carnotaurus avatar because I have a better Carnotaurus avatar. I just need to find it. But Carnotaurus is only really known from one really well-complete specimen. There is the possibility that pieces of that specimen had skin impressions. But the paleontologist working on it at the time overlooked that, and I forgot I put toast on this thing. Anyway, but these guys were a lot bigger. They were around 8 feet tall and had really muscular legs. Ironically, though, is it true that birds are dinosaurs? Yes. Yes, it is toast. But Carnotaurus is 8 feet tall. Ironically, we don't have the legs of Carnotaurus. However, it's possible Carnotaurus had very muscular legs that allowed it to be very fast. But yeah, I believe the estimate's like 35 miles an hour. It is debated how long they could hold that speed. In my opinion, I don't think it would be long. I think it would be like a short burst of speed and then it would go. But yeah, anything this size, which here, hold on, I'll show you its actual size. Anything this size moving 35 miles an hour that is not a car, train, or plane, I'm good. I'm good. The dinos, yes, they had something called cloacas. I'm not at liberty to really talk about the anatomy of that thing, but I will say that it is informally known as the everything hole. So I'm going to leave it at that. Why is Concavinator reconstructed with a weird sail as opposed to a hump? Because that's just kind of what it looks like. It's just kind of a hump. Or kind of like, well, it really depends on how you look at it. There's a debate on whether or not there was like a lot of muscle attachment to it. If there was muscle attachments to it, then it was probably a hump. If it wasn't, then maybe it was a sail. Unfortunately, Concavinator being one of the most well-recovered Carcharodontosaurids, but also only having one specimen, does kind of put us at a disadvantage for knowledge of the animal. So the real answer is right now is we don't have enough of it to really know. But yeah, do you think we'll ever see Cryolophosaurus and Primitive War sequel? I hope so. I hope that we get a sequel to Primitive War. I thought it was pretty good. I eventually got to see it. But yeah. Now, I do have some unfortunate news. I have just gotten a notification that my headset is dying. So that means, unfortunately, Dino Class is coming to an end. With all that being said, and I do apologize that we have to end, but my headset is quite literally dying. With all that said and done, I would like to give a very, very special thank you to everyone who stuck around, and also a very big special thank you to just all of the people who follow and support my content. You guys are amazing, and I'm so grateful that a lot of you have stuck around through my very long break. I am hoping to make a full return very, very soon. You will have another video up on Monday. I'll have a Paleopod episode up with Dino Guy and Paleo Pizza on Monday as well. I'd like to thank everyone who liked, commented, shared, and followed. You guys are awesome. And these streams are absolutely nothing without you guys, because this is kind of like a Q&A forum. So you guys really make these streams. Not really much of my thing, other than the fact of looking a little ridiculous dressed as a dinosaur in a classroom. And a very big special thank you and shout out to everyone who gifted. You guys are awesome. I love y'all. Y'all are the reason I'm able to keep doing this reliably and why. And I really, really appreciate all of your support. So, with all of that said and done, this is officially class dismissed. I will catch you all very, very soon. I want to try and do another class at least next week on Saturday as well. If I don't upload one day, that is probably because I'm planning to stream that day. Because again, I'm trying to upload or stream at least once a day. Well, that's done. Thank you everybody for stopping by and hanging out with me. If I didn't get to one of your questions, I do apologize. I look like a Carno. I am only human. You're free to comment your question on any video that I have, and I'll get to you as soon as I can, as well as joining the community Discord and asking me a question in the Lakota Questions channel. So, with all that said and done, finally, I will catch you all later. Bye bye!